Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is the new Ohio Star block. It finishes at 12 inches. And the Ohio Star block usually consists of plain blocks here in the corners, and these are quarter square triangles that make the star points, and usually a plain square in the center. So we've added some squares outside the star and some half square triangles on the corners. Here's the diagram. Here are 4 blocks set block to block. And this is a 3x3 grid. So we have 3 units across and 3 units down, and each of these units finishes at 4 inches. Here are the patches. There are 4 of them. Also, the AccuQuilt dies that you can use to cut these are listed as well. Here are the cutting instructions for the fabric. And we have a choice of when we make the half square triangles in these corners. You can cut patches and sew the 2 patches together, or you can use squares and make 2 half square triangles at a time, and I'm going to demonstrate that. And then for the quarter square triangles, I have cut patches. I'm going to show you a short tutorial on how to make them using squares. And to complete this block, we're just going to first make the half square triangles, then make the corner units, and then we'll sew the quarter square triangles together and then put the block together. Here are the patches in order of how we're going to complete things. These are the squares we've cut to make half square triangles 2 at a time, and I've cut them slightly larger so we can trim them down at the end. You can cut them the exact size if you like. Then we're going to use the half square triangles and these squares to make the corner units. Then we will put together the quarter square triangles to make the side units. This is the center unit for the block, and then we'll put the block together. So for the half square triangles 2 at a time, we need a total of 4, so we'll get 2 from each pair. A light and a dark pair. On the light fabric, we have drawn a diagonal line, and we put them right sides together with the dark fabric. And we'll stitch a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of this diagonal line. We'll do that for both of these. Now we've stitched on both sides, and we're going to cut this in half along the diagonal line. And we will have 2 half square triangles. So press your seams, either open or to the side, whichever you like, and you will have this. Now we're going to trim them down to 2.5 inches. I place my 6.5 inch ruler on the half square triangle, and I'm lining up this seam line with the diagonal line of the ruler. Then I want to check all 4 sides of the half square triangle to make sure we can trim past the 2.5 inches. So here is the 2.5 inch mark, and I have plenty, and 2.5 here, and I have plenty. But I'm going to move it down just a little bit to give me more to trim off here and here. And then you just trim here and here. Then flip this around. Now match up your 2.5 inch mark on the side and the bottom, and then line up your diagonal line and trim. And there you have your 2.5 inch cut half square triangle, and this will finish at 2 inches. So do that to this one, and then finish the other 2, and you'll have 4 half square triangles. For step 2, we're going to take the half square triangles from step 1, and we're going to take the B patches and make the 4 corner units. And these are made like this. So these 2 together and these 2, press the seams, and then sew the 2 rows together and make 4 of these. Up next, we're going to sew the quarter square triangles. Now I cut these are patches, and I cut them from a larger square. This is how you get quarter square triangles from a square. Now this was cut with the AccuQuilt, so these points are cut off, but this would be a square if you rotary cut it. Then you take the square and you cut it in half diagonally once and then twice. So you get 4 patches patches from that one square. These are what patches are. This is a patch too. The patch is the smallest thing, the smallest shape that shape can be in the block. So I could cut this again in half and use it somewhere else, but I'm not going to. But since this is how I'm going to use it, this is a patch. What we're going to do now is we're going to make 4 quarter square triangles that look like this. I know this is hard to see because it matches the mat. But what we're going to do is sew these two together, and then sew these two together, press those seams, and then sew the 2 halves together. And when you sew these together, you want to make this line straight and this line straight. So you'll take this, flip it over, and since these are the same size, you'll want to match all 3 sides. And then stitch your 1/4 inch here. Do the same thing to this one, flip it over, match all 3 sides, and stitch here. Press your seams. Here are your 2 halves. You've pieced and pressed. Now you flip this over and match all 3 sides. And also match the seams here. And stitch a 1/4 inch this way. Press your seams. And then you get this. This is your quarter square triangle finished and pressed. And you'll make 4 of these. For the quarter square triangles, 4 at a time, we have our 4 squares. This fabric will show up twice in each quarter square triangle. Put these right sides together, so one with the dark and one with the light. Mark a diagonal line on the backs of both of these fabrics. Stitch on both sides of the diagonal line on both of these pieces. Cut on the diagonal line. Normally I press the seams open, but for this technique, press toward the fabric that is duplicated. Press toward the yellow fabric on all of these. Take the different fabrics and match them together and flip this over. What we're doing is making sure the yellow fabric is on opposite sides, and we're using the seam allowance or the pressed seam as our guide, and we're nesting these seams. And you want to make sure that all of these sides are even. Draw another diagonal line. I like to put some pins on here just to hold it in place while I take it over to the sewing machine because I don't want the seams to unnest. Stitch on both sides of the diagonal line and do the same thing for this set. Cut them apart on the diagonal line. And when we open them up, we have quarter square triangles. They all look the same. Press open and then cut off all the nubs. Now we just follow the diagram. And for all you people that are new to the channel, all of these instructions can be downloaded in the description below the video. Let's start with our poppet board, and we'll start with the center unit, the square, add the corner units, and then the side units. Stitch the top units together into a row, the middle and the bottom. Press your seams and then sew the rows together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.